Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Elia and I have been crocheting 3D granny squares. Now what I realized is that a lot of people tend to find my videos by looking for how to crochet a granny square, and I've even had some comments asking me to slow down because people couldn't follow. So I figured if people are finding my channel because they are trying to understand how to make a granny square, I can make a video doing just that. So I'm going to do that today. I have two colors of very pretty organic cotton. This is a sort of ivory white and a brown. The state of this skein is a little bit battered, but it'll work just fine. And I also have a 5mm hook. I'm going to take you through the different steps and I will explain everything as we go along. So if you're interested in that, please keep watching. Feel free to like, feel free to comment, feel free to subscribe. And thank you so much. All right, so to start the granny square, there's two ways that you can start. The way that I prefer it is with the magic circle technique. So to do a magic circle, you need to take the yarn, make sure that the end is sort of in your palm area, but by your fingers. Then you're going to just wrap that yarn around once and a half times. So here it's very important that you have two strands here that are very clearly distinguished between each other. You don't want them to be smashed together because of how we're going to perform the next step. One thing that I do is I just kind of anchor the rest of the yarn here. So that is the yarn that is connected to my skein of yarn. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go under that first and over the second, and we're going to pull that yarn through. Now this is where it gets a little bit fidgety, so you have to make sure to keep a good hold of your yarn. The way that I like to do it is I just kind of hook my middle finger on my left hand in there, and then you're going to just yarn over and you're going to just chain one. There you go. Now it is a little bit more fixed and you can just grab this first chain here in your first, in your thumb and your middle finger, and we're going to chain 4 more. So this is number 2, 3, 4, and 5 in total. So now that we have that, we're going to set the foundation for the granny square. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to work in clusters of 3. So we do need to make a double crochet, and I will show you how to make double crochets. So if you want to make a double crochet, you basically have to yarn over the hook. So this is just, it's not a stitch, it's not anything, it's just, you make sure that there is a little loop of yarn on the hook. And then you go into the magic circle underneath, you grab the yarn in your hook. So as you can see here, I'm really putting it in the little crevice of the hook. You pull it through that loop. You go again so you pull it through, you kind of let it go. You slide it onto your hook, and then you, go in, grab that yarn again. So again, you just kind of go, you need to make sure that you twist this hook a lot. That's how you make sure that the yarn goes underneath that little crevice here in your hook, and you go through the first one, through the second one. This first double crochet is always a little bit tricky. Then when you have 2 hoops or 2 loops left, so this is the one that we just pulled up, you're going to slide that down your hook again, you're going to do another yarn over, and you're going to pull it through those loops. And you do that a total of 3 times. So this is number 2 and number 3. So feel free to go back and just, watch that back multiple times. What we now do is we're going to chain 2. So a chain is really when you have a loop on your hook, you just basically take the yarn and you pull it through. So that's one chain, and then you pull it through again. That's the second chain. All right, so we now have that first cluster. What we're going to do is we're going to again make a cluster of 3 double crochets. So again, you're going to yarn over your hook. You're going in the magic circle and you're going to just pull up that loop. You might want to just hold this here, hold it tight so that it's a little bit easier to distinguish what is what. You're going to slide that down, and you're going to again grab the yarn, pull it through loop number 1, loop number 2. Oh, see, I'm working with yarn that is it's what do you call it? It's twisted rather than chained yarn. So I think if you are very new to this, maybe don't buy yarn that is twisted like that because it will split, but I will try again. So yarn over, we're going into the magic circle, and we have 3 loops now on our crochet hook. We're going to grab more yarn, we're going to pull through those first 2 loops and through those last 2 loops after doing another yarn over. So again, yarn over into the magic circle, pull up another loop, yarn over again, pull through the first 2 loops on your hook, make sure that you don't mess up the thread, yarn over and pull through the last 2. And one more time, I'm going to speed up just a little bit more. And through the last 2. So we have another cluster of 3 double crochets. So now we again go chain 1 and chain 2. All right, now what you're going to do is you're going to do this once more, and then I will come back. All right, we now have 3 clusters of 3 double crochets on the magic circle. You can just slide them a little bit so that they are together a bit more. You can also pull on that short end of the yarn to just make sure that this yarn is always on the left side of any of your stitches as you're working, because we're going to have to pull this tight and you don't want this to just be somewhere lost in the middle. So now that we have come to our last, our 4th cluster, because of course we want to make a square, what we're going to do is we're not going to make 3 double crochets, we're going to make 2. So again, yarn over, pull up a loop through the first 2, the last 3 loops, and you do that one more time. And you notice how I'm just trying to hold on to that magic circle in whichever way I can, just to make it a little bit easier. Now we've got 2 double crochets. The trick here is that this first chain of 5 stitches, it acts as the first double crochet. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take that short end here, and we're going to just pull it and pull it tight. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a slip stitch. And we're going to do that by going into just, you know, this space here. We're going to pull the loop, and then we're going to pull through that loop that was already on our hook. And that is how you get the bases of your little square. So this was the first round. Now for the second round, we're going to be changing the yarn color. You don't have to do this. I'm doing this because this is going to be part of a tutorial that I'm making for a little bag. And I think it'll just look really, really cute if we have, you know, different colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a slip knot. So the way that you do a slip knot, a lot of crocheters kind of do that by crocheting. I was originally a knitter, so the way that I learned to do it is you basically put the yarn over your finger like this, and then you just pull up that loop like this. And then you can tighten it by pulling on either end so that it's a little bit tight. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put that on my hook, tighten it just a little bit, but not too much, because you don't want a super tight loop, but you also don't want a super loose loop. Here you do need to make sure that you tighten that brown yarn as well. And we're going to go again with chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, because that will always be the basis of our rounds. Now what I want to do is I don't want, I want to attach this yarn each time. But of course, because this yarn is here right now, we can't just cut it off, we have to weave it in. A lot of people weave in ends later. I like to weave in ends as you go, so I will show you how to do that now. So here again, we're going to basically make 2 double crochets. So we're going to do that inside this space that was created by those 2 chains that are part of that 3 chain space. So we're going to go in, and what you now need to make sure of is that that white yarn as well as that brown yarn are above your hook. So when you pull this through, you have now kind of secured that, and when you pull this through, you secure it once more. So you pull that through your loops. There we go, that is number 1. And we do that one more time, and you can kind of tighten this a little bit if you feel like there is a need to, if things have gotten a little bit loose. So we're going to do that one more time, and now that you have done that once, you will also notice that that yarn that you're trying to weave in will stay in place a lot more. Okay, so that is the first stitch in the chain space. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make a stitch in every single one of these the tops of these stitches, and this is key. This is something that I personally as a knitter found very difficult to understand, like how do I know what the stitch is? So I'm going to show you. Okay, so we're going to do the yarn over one more time, and then the key is that first stitch is here. So it is basically where you see this tiny little loop here. This is where the stitch is. So we're going to go into that stitch, which is just here. And we're going to again make sure that that white and that brown yarn is on top of the hook. We yarn over, and we go through the first 2 loops so that we secure that in place, and that is how you weave in those ends. So again, into the next stitch, we're just going to continue. There we go, and into the next one. Now I personally feel like that if you have 3 or 4 stitches where you've weaved in the ends, I feel like it's pretty secure. So this will probably be the last one where I'm going to use that method. So other than that, I can just grab my little scissors and I can just cut that off. So that way we have a tiny little bit of white yarn. And of course, this is just our ball of brown yarn, which I'm going to just put to the side. All right, so now the next step is we're going to work in that chain space. So this is also key. You need to understand that this stitch right here is one of the 2 chains. Okay, this is not your double crochet. So what we do here is we make a double crochet by going into this space here, pulling up a loop, and again going through 2 loops and yarn over again through 2 loops, and you do that 2 times. Okay, so that was number 1, and this is number 2. Now to make another chain 2 space for the next round there, we're going to just chain 2. This is 1 and 2, and we're going to again in that same chain space do another 2 double crochets. Now what this does is it increases the size of your square in a very pretty way, and also in a way that is not going to disturb anything. So we've got that first chain 2 space. You can kind of pull that yarn and kind of move it to the side a little bit because this is our next stitch. So again, we're going to just make 3 double crochets here. There you go, that is 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do the same thing here in that chain space. Now, one thing I want you to understand is that as you've done this, because every single time that you do a stitch, it kind of pulls on the stitch and it makes it look like this is your next stitch. It is not. So this is your chain space. You've done your 3 double crochets, so you're going to do 2 double crochets in your chain space. There we go, 1, 2. We're going to do 2 chains again, and we're going to do 2 double crochets one more time in that chain space. So that is number 1 and number 2. And again, you can move this aside a little bit if it is kind of obstructing your view of that next stitch. So we're going to go in, one, two, three. There you go. And you can see it's really coming along as a square. I'm going to finish the rest of it and we will get back to the place where we need to then join the yarn. Okay, so we've come to the final round. I'm just going to put my 1, 2, and then the third one is slightly tricky because it's not quite like the others, because this is where we had our slip stitch, but this is still number 3. And then of course, you know, we have that double crochet that still needs to go into that chain 2 space. So I've done that, and then we're going to just do another slip stitch here. So now we have 2 rounds, which is very exciting. And the next step now is joining the brown yarn again, and we're going to just continue doing that. So of course now, rather than having 3 double crochets in the middle, you have 7. So we just keep doing that. We do 2 double crochets in that chain 2 space. Of course we will start with the 5 chain first. So let's see, let's find the end of that yarn. There we go. Again, I'm going to make a slip knot. So with the short end, I'm going to just go over my finger and make the slip knot. There we go. All right, just gonna put that on my hook like that. And I am just going to go through. And I think one thing that I realized is this is actually already 1 chain. So this is chain 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now again, in that chain 2 space, we're going to do 2 double crochets. So this is 1 and 2, and again I am of course making sure that I weave in those ends as I go. Here again we have that this is the place to start the round, so rather than 3 we now have 7. There we go, that is 1, and you can see that the yarn is slightly shorter here, that little tip. So I'm just pulling on that a little bit just to make sure that I can weave that in tightly. This is 2. Oh. This is 3. And number 4. I'm going to see if I can still weave in that end. It's probably going to come out a little bit odd, but that's okay. There we go. So that will be the last end that I weave in. But as you can see, this is really just increasing. Oh, I almost made a single crochet there. As you can see, it's really just increasing the size of that square with every single round that you do, because you're making those double crochets into the edges, and so that just helps to increase the size of the square, and that way we can actually make a little bag out of this, which I'm looking forward to doing, and that might be a separate tutorial just to understand how to join those squares together. So we've come to the end of the round. As you can see here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 double crochets into the base stitches. So I'm going to continue the round. I'm going to come back to you when I am on this side. Okay, we've come to the final side. So again, we want to make sure that we make 7 double crochets into the stitches. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this last one is number 7. Again, this last one is always a little bit tricky because it is that slip stitch. And then you're going to just go into that chain space one time and make that double crochet there. And then you're going to go in this brown chain space and you're just going to do a slip stitch. And there we go. We now have 3 rounds. So we're really coming very close to a square. Again, we are changing color, so I have decided that I want to go with 5 rounds on each square. I'm planning to make 4 squares in total so that we can make a bag at the end. So let's join the new color, and you're basically just going to repeat what I have shown you. You can watch the video back a little bit just to, you know, see how I did everything. But like I said, you just want to make sure that, so this is chain 1, you want to make sure that you weave in those ends as you go, because there's nothing worse than 2, 3, 4, 5. In my opinion, there's nothing worse than finishing a project that you're really excited about and then having to weave in all those ends, whereas now it looks like this. So you still have that first bit of yarn, but everything else has just been woven in very neat and tidily. And you can see that by looking here. So you can't even see that we've done that. So that is great because it just kind of, you know, removes the annoyance toward the end. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start this round. So it's again going into this chain space with 2 double crochets. There we go. Okay, and we're going to just keep doing that. So you should now have 11 double crochets in each side. As you can see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So do make sure that you count that. Make sure that you do there what you need to do, because if you remember, and the reason that I'm telling you this is that very first granny square that I made, I had no idea where I needed to insert the hook at the start of each round and what the end of each round is. So as you can see, some rounds have vastly more stitches, especially this side, compared to others like this side and this side. So it's really important that you keep a good eye on where your round starts, which is here in this particular stitch, and where it ends, which is here in this stitch. Okay, so start, end. All right, so let's continue this round. I'll get back to you when we are roughly here so that we can join and start the next and final round. All right, so we've come to the final part of this round. So again, we're just going to keep double crocheting into each of the stitches. And it's basically, it's just exactly the same as each of the previous rounds, really. But just, there we go. Okay, and just that last one, that little slip stitch, just gonna keep doing that. And again, one last round into the chain 2 space of the previous round, and we're going to again do the slip stitch. So again, the slip stitches, you have that one loop on your hook. You're not going to yarn over or anything. You're just going to go straight into the slip the space here. You're going to just grab that yarn and then you're going to pull it through that last loop, and there you go. And so now this is a square with four rows. All right, so we are nearly at the end. I wanted to just show you how I weave in that last, or not that last, actually that first bit of yarn. First and foremost, I'm just going to pull this loop up, and I'm just gonna ignore it for now. And this yarn, how I weave that in is, of course, you need a needle like this. It's a blunt needle. They call it a tapestry needle or an embroidery needle. I like to use this one because it's really big, and so it's just easier for me to kind of grab it without my hands hurting. So you're just going to pull your yarn through, and then what you're going to do is, as you can see, it's coming out of this bit here. It's coming out of that bit, so you're going to just keep weaving it through the rest of it. And the beauty of this is that it was, of course, already part of a circle, so you're basically going through these stitches again. So we're just going to go through this cluster. I'm just going to pull that through there, and then I'm going to do the same. So that is one of them. This is going to be the second one. There we go, just pulling that through. The third one, and the fourth and final one. So once you've done that, you can now just, in good conscience, what I like to do is I like to stretch it just a little bit, just to make sure that you don't lose that yarn somewhere, and then you just cut it off as closely as you're comfortable with. And that has now been completely woven in. So now all we have left is this bit. I'm going to just leave that on for now. I think it will come in handy when we need to join the squares. So yeah, I hope that this tutorial was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you can follow along when we make the bag. If you do want to make the bag, make sure that you make 3 more so that you have a total of 4. Of course, you can use any color that you like, any change that you like. So the next one you make, instead of having it start with brown, you might want to start with white. If you have other colors, you can do 1 color per round. It's really entirely up to you. I hope that this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.